Poor girl pays bus fare for a stranger, not knowing he is millionaire. What he did surprised everyone. Imagine this. A young woman, exhausted after a long day at work, finds herself standing at a bus stop, with just enough coins in her pocket to get home. She's dreaming of a warm bed and a moment of peace, when suddenly she notices a man, clearly out of place, disheveled and desperate, pleading with the bus driver for a ride. His story: he's been robbed, left stranded without money or means to get home. Everyone else on the bus looks away, pretending not to hear him, but not her. Without hesitation, she steps forward and pays his fare, thinking nothing of it. Little does she know that this small act of kindness will change both their lives forever. That young woman is Julia, a hard-working waitress who has spent most of her life balancing dreams and responsibilities. Her father passed away years ago, leaving her to take care of her mother while juggling school and work. Every coin she earns feels earned twice over. But despite the struggles, Julia carries an unshakable belief in doing what's right, even if it means giving up her last bit of change for a stranger. On the other side of the equation is William Stone, a name that holds immense weight in the world of luxury hotels and high society. But tonight, stripped of his wealth and status by a group of robbers, he's just another lost soul trying to find his way back home. As fate would have it, their paths cross on that crowded bus, setting off a chain reaction neither could have predicted. When Julia pays William's fare, she expects nothing in return. To her, it's simply a human thing to do, a gesture born out of empathy rather than expectation. For William, however, this moment shakes something deep within him. Used to living in a world where everything comes with strings attached, he can't comprehend why this girl, a complete stranger, would help him without wanting anything in return. And so begins a journey that neither of them anticipated. One filled with unexpected twists, profound lessons, and emotions they never saw coming. What makes this story truly compelling isn't just the stark contrast between these two individuals. It's how their connection evolves into something far greater than either imagined. At first glance, Julia and William couldn't be more different. She's practical, grounded, and used to counting every penny. He's part of a wealthy dynasty, accustomed to privilege and power. Yet beneath those surface differences lies a shared longing for authenticity. Julia dreams of opening her own bakery someday, a place where people feel welcomed and cared for. Meanwhile, William feels trapped in the gilded cage of his family's expectations, yearning to break free and create something meaningful on his own terms. Their meeting becomes the catalyst for change, not just in each other's lives, but also within themselves. The beauty of this tale lies in its simplicity and humanity. It reminds us that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward, creating waves we never expected. Julia didn't pay William's fare because she thought he was rich or important. She did it because she believed everyone deserves a helping hand. And yet, as their story unfolds, we see how that single decision sets off a series of events that challenges both their perceptions of trust, love, and sacrifice. Can someone like William, who's always had everything handed to him, truly understand what it means to earn someone's faith? And can Julia, who's learned to guard her heart against disappointment, let herself believe in the possibility of something extraordinary? As the days pass, William finds himself drawn back to the diner where Julia works. At first, he tells himself it's just to repay his debt, to settle the score for the few coins she gave him that night. But as time goes on, it becomes clear that there's more to his visits than mere gratitude. He watches her move through her shifts with quiet determination, listens to her talk about her dreams of owning a bakery, and begins to see life through her eyes. In turn, Julia starts noticing little things about William. The way he speaks, the questions he asks, the genuine interest he shows in her aspirations. There's something about him that doesn't quite add up. But instead of pushing her away, it only makes her more curious. Their growing bond raises questions that linger unanswered. Why does William keep coming back? Is he really as ordinary as he seems? Or is there more to his story than he's letting on? And what happens when Julia discovers the truth about who he really is? These are the threads that weave together a narrative full of tension, emotion, and hope. As viewers, we're invited to step into their shoes, to feel the weight of their choices and the uncertainty of their future. Will their differences tear them apart, or will they find a way to bridge the gap between their worlds? But here's the thing about stories like this. They don't unfold neatly. Just when you think you've figured out where it's headed, life throws a curveball. For Julia and William, that curveball comes in the form of secrets, misunderstandings, and external forces determined to pull them apart. The closer they get, the more complicated things become. William's family legacy looms large, threatening to drag him back into a life he no longer wants. Meanwhile, ghosts from Julia's past resurface, forcing her to confront old wounds she thought were healed. Together, they must navigate these challenges while holding on to the fragile thread of trust that binds them. By now, you might be wondering, what exactly did William do to repay Julia's kindness? How did their relationship evolve from a chance encounter on a bus to something much deeper? And most importantly, what happens next? Well, I won't spoil it for you. All I'll say is that this story is about more than just romance or redemption. It's about finding yourself through someone else. It's about learning to let go of fear and embracing the unknown. And above all, it's about the transformative power of kindness, even when it comes from the most unexpected places. So grab your favorite snack, sit back, and prepare to dive into a tale that will tug at your heartstrings and leave you rooting for love, resilience, and second chances. Because sometimes the greatest stories start with the simplest beginnings: a few coins, a crowded bus, and two strangers whose lives are about to change forever. Stay tuned for the next part, where we uncover the answers to these burning questions and reveal the moments that will make you laugh, cry, and maybe even believe in magic again. The next morning, Julia woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. She replayed the events of the previous night over and over in her mind. The bouquet of flowers, the kiss, the way William had looked at her like she was the only person in the world. It all felt so perfect, yet a small part of her couldn't shake off the unease that had been growing since Eric's call. William had tried to reassure her, but she knew him well enough by now to see the tension behind his calm exterior was protective, maybe even a little too much so. And while it made her feel safe, it also worried her. What if Eric's reappearance disrupted everything they had built? William, on the other hand, wasn't about to let anyone ruin what they had worked so hard for. That same morning, he decided to dig deeper into Eric's past. He didn't want to alarm Julia, but he needed answers. The more he uncovered, the angrier he became. Eric wasn't just an ex-boyfriend. He was someone who had belittled Julia's dreams, dismissed her ambitions, and left her doubting herself when she needed support the most. To William, this man represented everything he wanted to protect Julia from: negativity, doubt, and disrespect. But as much as he wanted to confront Eric directly, he knew it wasn't his place. This was Julia's battle, not his. Meanwhile, Julia found herself torn between moving forward and dealing with the ghosts of her past. Every time she thought about Eric, memories flooded back. Memories of arguments, broken promises, and moments when she felt like giving up on her dreams altogether. Back then, Eric had mocked her idea of opening a bakery, calling it a waste of talent and urging her to focus on something more practical. His words had stung, not because they were true, but because they planted seeds of doubt in her mind. Those doubts had taken years to overcome, and now, hearing from him again, threatened to bring them all rushing back. As the days passed, the tension between Julia and William grew subtle but noticeable. Neither of them wanted to admit it, but Eric's shadow loomed large over their relationship. One evening, as they sat together on the beach watching the sunset, William finally broke the silence. "You know," he began hesitantly, "I've been thinking about what you said, that Eric is part of your past, and I believe you, but I can't help feeling like he's trying to creep back into your life." Julia sighed, knowing he was right. "He doesn't matter to me anymore," she replied softly, "but I'd be lying if I said his call didn't shake me. It's not about him. It's about what he represents." That conversation marked a turning point for both of them. They realized that ignoring the issue wouldn't make it go away. Instead, they needed to face it head-on, together. Over the next few days, Julia opened up more about her history with Eric, sharing details she had kept buried for years. She talked about how his criticism had once made her question whether she was good enough, smart enough, or talented enough to pursue her dreams. Listening to her, William felt a mix of anger toward Eric and admiration for Julia. Her strength amazed him, and he vowed to himself that he would never let anyone undermine her again. But just as things seemed to be settling down, another challenge arose, one that neither of them saw coming. A local newspaper published an article questioning the viability of their business venture. The headline read, "Luxury Hotel Heir Fails to Deliver Promises in Coastal Town Project." The article painted William as reckless and naive for leaving his family's empire to start something smaller, implying that the hotel and bakery were doomed to fail. Worse still, it included quotes from anonymous sources, claiming that the project was draining resources from the community without delivering tangible benefits. When Julia saw the article, her heart sank. She immediately called William, who sounded equally shaken. "This isn't just about us anymore," he told her grimly. "They're attacking the entire project. The jobs we've created, the hope we've brought to this town. We can't let them win." Determined to fight back, they rallied the local community, hosting a meeting to address concerns and showcase the progress they had made. Dozens of residents turned out, many expressing their support for the project and thanking Julia and William for investing in the town. By the end of the night, the atmosphere had shifted from skepticism to optimism. Despite this victory, the stress of the situation took its toll. Both Julia and William were exhausted, juggling the demands of running their businesses while fending off criticism from outsiders. Yet through it all, their bond only grew stronger. Late one night, as they sat together in the quiet of the bakery kitchen, Julia leaned her head against William's shoulder. "Do you ever wonder if we bit off more than we could chew?" she asked with a tired laugh. William kissed the top of her head. "Every day," he admitted. "But then I remind myself why we started this. To prove that happiness isn't about money or status. It's about creating something real, something meaningful. And we're doing that." Their determination paid off in unexpected ways. Slowly, but surely, the hotel and bakery gained traction, drawing visitors from neighboring towns and earning rave reviews online. People praised the cozy ambiance of the hotel, the warmth of the staff, and of course, the mouth-watering treats from Julia's bakery. For the first time in months, they allowed themselves to breathe a little easier, savoring the fruits of their labor. But just as they began to relax, fate threw them one final curveball. It came in the form of a letter, a formal invitation addressed to William from his father. Inside was a request for a meeting, along with a thinly veiled threat: return to the family business, or risk losing everything he had worked for. William stared at the letter for a long time, his mind racing. He hadn't expected his father to give up so easily, but he also hadn't anticipated such blatant manipulation. When Julia found him later that evening, sitting alone in his office, with the letter clutched in his hand, she knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked gently, kneeling beside him. William handed her the letter without a word. As she read it, her stomach churned. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. William looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he admitted. "But whatever happens, I won't let him take this away from us." Julia nodded, though fear gnawed at her insides. She trusted William completely, but she couldn't ignore the weight of what they were facing. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about proving that love, hard work, and authenticity could triumph over greed and control. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown. Would William stand firm in his decision to forge his own path? Or would the pressure from his family force him to abandon everything he had built with Julia? And what role would Eric play in all of this? Lurking in the shadows and waiting for the right moment to strike. As tensions reached a boiling point, one thing was certain: the choices they made next would define not only their future, but also the legacy they hoped to leave behind. The next morning, Julia woke up with a strange sense of calm. She looked at the ring on her finger, the sunlight catching its delicate sparkle, and smiled softly. But as peaceful as she felt, there was still an undercurrent of unease running through her mind. Eric's call lingered like a shadow, no matter how hard she tried to push it away. William had been supportive, but she could tell he was holding something back, something serious. When she asked him about it over breakfast, he simply said, "Let me handle this." His tone was firm yet gentle, but it only made her more curious. Later that day, William stepped into his office at the hotel, closing the door behind her. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he'd found after digging into Eric's past. The conversation was brief, but direct. "Stay away from her," William said, his voice cold and steady. There was silence on the other end before Eric replied, trying to sound casual. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." William clenched his jaw. "I know enough. If I hear from her, or anyone else, that you've contacted her again, I won't hesitate to make your life difficult. Do we understand each other?" Whatever Eric muttered in response didn't matter. William ended the call without waiting for further argument. When William returned to the bakery later that evening, Julia immediately noticed the tension in his shoulders. "What did you do?" she asked, concern etched across her face. William hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "I took care of it. He won't bother you again." Julia frowned, torn between gratitude and frustration. "William, I can handle my own problems." He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. Not when it comes to someone who doesn't deserve a second of your time." Despite the reassurance, Julia couldn't shake the feeling that Eric wasn't done causing trouble, and she was right. A few days later, while scrolling through social media during a rare break, Julia stumbled upon a post, a photo of her and William outside their bakery, accompanied by a caption written by Eric. "Looks like some people forget where they came from once they hit the jackpot." Her stomach dropped. Comments poured in. ranging from nasty remarks about Julia being a gold digger to accusations that William was slumming it with someone below his status. It was cruel, unfair, and designed to hurt. Julia showed the post to William, her hands trembling. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then William broke the silence. "We knew people would talk. We just didn't expect it to come from him." Julia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "But why does it feel like everyone believes him? Like maybe he's right." William cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "Because they don't know us. They don't know how much we've worked for this. Don't let his words change what we've built together." Determined not to let Eric's actions derail them, Julia and William decided to address the situation head-on. That evening, William posted a heartfelt message on the hotel's official page, explaining their journey, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the love that had brought them here. He included photos of the bakery's early days, Julia kneading, dough late at night, and sketches of the hotel's design process. "This isn't about money or status," he wrote. "It's about two people choosing to create something real, something meaningful. If you want to judge us, fine, but judge us based on the truth." The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from friends, customers, and even strangers who admired their resilience. Slowly but surely, the negativity faded into the background. People began focusing on the beauty of their story, instead of the lies spread by someone bitter and resentful. With the storm weathered, Julia and William turned their attention back to the future. Their businesses continued to thrive, becoming staples in the coastal town. Locals loved the cozy charm of the bakery and the warm hospitality of the hotel. Tourists raved about the unique experience of staying somewhere so personal and genuine. Every success felt earned, every challenge worth overcoming. Months later, on the anniversary of their grand opening, Julia and William stood together on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" William asked, wrapping an arm around her. Julia laughed softly. "How could I forget? You were terrible at convincing me to trust you." He chuckled, pulling her closer. "And now?" She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Now I can't imagine trusting anyone more." As they walked back toward the hotel hand in hand, Julia paused for a moment, looking out at the ocean. "Do you think we'll ever stop surprising each other?" William smiled, kissing the top of her head. "I hope not. Life's too short to stop being surprised." In the end, Julia and William proved that true love isn't about perfection. It's about finding someone who makes you better, stronger, and happier than you ever thought possible. Their story wasn't without its challenges, but those very obstacles only deepened their bond. They taught everyone around them, and perhaps even themselves, that happiness comes not from wealth or power, but from the courage to follow your heart and build something real. So, what do you think of Julia and William's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this tale of kindness, resilience, and love? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to catch more heartwarming stories like this one. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the greatest adventures.